Okay, so we went over what is a fact. And I haven't gotten to the other things yet, the alternative and fake. But why do people misunderstand facts? What's interesting is about facts is that more knowledge doesn't mean you're going to understand it any better. There was a study that was just done, and it looked pretty good. I looked at it. And individuals with greater science literacy and education have more polarized beliefs on controversial science topics. So the more you know about climate change, if you happen to take a position on one side or the other, no matter what's presented to you, you're going to harden your views. And this came as an enormous surprise to me. I thought that knowledge is power, knowledge leads to understanding. I'm a fact kind of guy. And so what's going on here that people are refused to understand facts? The fundamental problem are social issues. And that's something I don't know much about. I've read about it, but I'm not a social scientist. There was a wonderful essay called The Dying Art of Disagreement by Bret Stephens. It just came out September 24th, which went through this. It turns out that when people are offered different facts, a lot of people put a moral judgment onto the facts. In other words, so I have this, of Jesus, doing arm wrestling with the devil. In other words, if you're presented a fact that you don't like, you attribute the other person as having some moral defect. And that plays into some of what we're seeing now in not understanding or wanting to understand real facts, be it political realities or science. Then we have what's known as geographic, I call it Balkanization. The Balkan states were all these little states in Europe that all split apart. And so this is a great graphic. I hope you can see it in the back. After the last election, the New York Times produced these. And what they did is, let's pretend that all the counties in America that voted for Hillary were raised above a sea of those counties that didn't. So you have the red states and the blue states. So these are the blue people, the people who voted for Clinton. I'm not going to say whether that's good or bad if you voted for Clinton. And what you have is the United States of archipelagos. Here it'd be like an Indonesian archipelago on that side, and over there you'd have an archipelago there with little islands in the middle. And that's what the United States would look like of those counties where people had voted for Clinton, the Democrats, Democratic line. Now, if in contrast you were Trump's America, what you would have would be a much larger landmass with a lot of little bays on the east and a lot of bays on the west and a big kind of Santa Fe Sea in the middle. Okay, and then you'd have and so forth with little lakes everywhere. Because this is the nation that voted for Donald Trump. And this is the one that voted for Hillary. Making it even worse, that's not even tell the story, the social story of America. There was a book that came out, wonderful book by, and I can get all these references for you. Next time I'll hand them out to you in a list if you want to look them up. It's called the Colin Woodard, American Nations, A History of 11 Rival Regional Cultures of North America. And he breaks up America into these individual countries that are all now cobbled together into our great nation. And each of these have their own history, which defines the way they look at facts, morals, the nation's politics, and they are diametrically opposed in many cases. It's a fascinating book, but this leads to people not wanting to accept facts because they come from completely different social cultures. Then finally, there's electronic balkanization. We have, through the media and through the electronic media, people now can go and only listen to what they want, what they agree with. And this is a profound, worldwide problem. On the one hand, you could have Breitbart, which, by the way, I do look at periodically to see what they say. Then you have PBS on the other side. You might say right versus left. And everything in between. And so, for example, my neighbor is an old Marine. I love him dearly. I mow his lawn. He plows my driveway. He voted for Trump, right-wing Republican. He believes in guns, everything you'd imagine from a Marine who fought in Vietnam, or many of them. And we have wonderful discussions, all right? He listens to Breitbart and Fox. And I say, no, maybe you ought to try something in the central part, And he says, well, Don, you ought to start looking at Fox a little bit. And so we actually are looking at opposing, quote-unquote, digital stuff to get a sense of what the other side thinks. Very few people do that. Very, very few people do that anymore. And I dare say everyone in this room is in their own little echo chamber too. What is an echo chamber? You hear them bandied about. I thought I'd show you this. This is a cool echo chamber. 3 echoes. Isn't that cool? He's a good trumpet player. Oh, done. Okay. We're all in our echo chamber. Even in my own family. There are things, if I suggest to my wife, she'll go crazy. She won't even hear it. And the things she says to me, I go crazy. I try to hear it. I'm trying to get better. Okay. So, and then there's personal balkanization based on single issues. So there's a faculty member in my department who will be unnamed, who was a dear friend of mine. I really like him. And this individual will vote always Republican because he's pro-life. And that defines his entire life in terms of politics. And then I know some Republican friends who are pro-gun. Boy, whatever, you can't take my guns away, or whatever, you name it. And they just can't get out of that personal one issue above all. And that plays into every other fact issue that they see. So pro-choice, pro-life, and these are, and I see both sides. I actually see both sides. And so, sometimes what you ought to try doing for facts, you can read the court proceedings of the Supreme Court, and go and read Scalia's opinions on some of the more controversial cases, and then read the opposite opinion from Kennedy. You read Scalia and you say, wow, what a great... Yeah, I think he's right. This could be on things that are quite right-wing to most people. And then I read Kennedy's and I go, whoa, yeah, he's right too. Brilliantly written, yeah. So I have no solution to these social problems. I don't know what the solution is, other than being talk to each other and open up your minds to the other side. And not put yourself in social balkanization, digital balkanization. The most powerful problem with facts is this, that people put themselves in certain social circles, and if they don't conform to the views of the social circle, they're ostracized. And let me give you 2 quick anecdotes. Okay, I'm going to run a little bit long on this, just a little bit, but these are my favorite anecdotes. I'll go very quickly. I was heavily involved in fracking issues. And fracking is a way to get natural gas out of the ground. People think it poisons their water, etc. All right, I got a call at the university, cold call from the head of the Sierra Club. And he said, Don, yes, I'm so-and-so. I want to hear from your mouth, the horse's mouth, will it poison our water? Sierra Club. I said, no, it won't. And he gave a big sigh and said, you're right, but I can't tell my membership that any longer because I would be kicked out of the organization. They won't accept it. I went to Denver, the second anecdote, and I gave a talk on fracking to the CEOs of the nation's oil and gas companies. Tillerson was there. All right, and I was talking about fracking in upstate New York, and so I'm having lunch, and I'm going to talk at the end of lunch, and I'm listening, and these CEOs are talking about the crazy green people in New York and in Pennsylvania trying to stop something that is perfectly wonderful. And they're just crazy, and they're nuts, and all that. And you name the Sierra Club and the World Wildlife Fund and so forth. So then I give my talk, And then I got the question, do you think there'll be fracking in New York? This is before the ban. So I said, I don't know, it's up to the governor. But you know, these green people aren't crazy at all. After all, I said, you, and I pointed to Tillerson, the head of Exxon, I said, you're a real smart man. And you, the head of Chevron, you're all really smart men. Otherwise, you wouldn't be there as CEOs of the world's greatest oil companies. And so you fully know that burning fossil fuels is contributing significantly to climate change. But you can't say it publicly or you'll be ostracized by everyone at these tables and you'll lose economic purchase. And there was dead silence. Mouths dropped open. I'm being brought back to the airport in Denver by the head of Chevron. Silence. He says, you know, Don, that was an interesting statement you said at the end of your talk. I said, oh, really? What do you think? He says, you're right. They know that. They always knew that. But they can't diverge from their opinion. That's how powerful social connections are. Okay, how much longer is it? Time, let me see. Let me just try one. Scientific reasons why people get actual facts wrong. I'm going to segue next time. They don't understand what chance is, what random chance is. They don't understand what absolute facts are versus what's known as relative facts. And they don't know what cause and effect mean. And so that's more of the nitty-gritty of the science. And I think, okay, we'll just take a break now. Would be the right time or not?
Whenever you want.
Okay, well, I'll continue a little bit longer. Okay. So a lot of facts are not palatable. What's chance? A lot of people don't understand chance. What random means. So here are two images on the left and the right, and they show dots. And this is a plot of the height of people versus the weight, say. Okay, which one of these would you say, let's raise a hand, how many would think that this would be the right-hand side, this is random. How many would say that's random by chance? 1, 2, 3, oh, here come the hands. Social pressures coming in. How many would say the other one there is random? There's a few more.
Sure.
The other one's random because you have clusters in it. Little pockets there. It's called Poisson, oops, you can't see it. Poisson clumping. I don't know if you can see the red there. But they're clusters of it. Random doesn't mean equally distributed. And so let's demonstrate using a coin toss, which is kind of, oops, go back one, come back. This is a cool site. Okay, so there's a number of coin tosses. This is flipping a coin. We're going to do 10. Should be half heads, half tails, right? And of course the computer does it randomly and properly. And the table that comes out is you have 4 heads, 4 tails, 4 heads, 6 tails. Now let's do another 10 just to see what happens. I'll clear the results. Okay. Oops, here we go. And 5 and 5. That looks pretty good. Now if we go to 100, clear the results, toss them, and you'll see it gets a little bit closer. That's almost exactly right. You go 1,000, and then you should get, again, oops, toss them. You should get pretty close to 50-50, 500-500. Pretty close. If you want to look at it as a ratio, those who are math-oriented, they're basically the same. So, if you do it enough, it meets the statistical probability. If you only do a few samples, then it could be anything. And a lot of people don't understand it. And one way to oops, done, get that right here. One way to describe it in a way that is really very current is let's look at hurricanes. Hurricane Harvey, which you know of, is anybody here named Harvey? Oh, too bad. Okay, is a one. Depending how you view it, it's a storm that should statistically happen once every 100 years. 1 every 100 years. The rain that came out of it is 1 every 500 years. So that's kind of an unusual storm. But then it was followed by Irma, which also is a 1 in 100 year storm, which is followed by Maria, which is also a 1 in 100 year storm. And this could very well just be what's known as Poisson clumping. Those probability statistics may have very little meaning any longer. And here's the rain from hurricanes that one of my colleagues had put together over time, times on the 1990 1960 to 2015. And you can see it's rain on the vertical scale. There's Harvey at 52, but notice the clumping. Allison, Georges, Danny, Amelia. So it looks like it's maybe a cycle here. We don't know yet. So, but to say this has caused those hurricanes by climate change is silly. I mean, it's still, we don't have enough data yet. It's data, you have to have data. Then finally, a couple more slides. And what is acceptable in terms of facts? What's acceptable to you? Let's say you're playing Russian roulette. And this is the classic scene from The Deer Hunter. You have 1 out of 8 chance of blowing your brains out, or 7 chances of not blowing your brains out of 8. 7 out of 8, that sounds pretty good. 1 out of 8 sounds, wait a minute, I don't know if I want to take the gun. How good is good enough for you? Let's say you went to the doctor, you had something wrong. He says, you're going to have to have a surgery. But only 25% of those who have this rather unusual surgery actually do pretty well. So you have to make it. So most people may, I don't want to try that risk. I'll just let it run. Or the doctor says half of those do very well. Maybe I'll do it. 95% of those have this operation do very well. And then it changes. Same facts, but how you look at them depends on what you want to do with those facts. So how good is good enough? And in the environmental world, a lot of environmentalists never set the bar. They just keep raising it because their system, they don't want to accept whatever is coming out. Okay, I'm going to stop right there and just take a break.